Let's take another look at the ZoneMapper tool. This is a good photograph in which to do that because it has a range of tones that we can watch change as we use the ZoneMapper. This is a backlit picture with the sun going down against the horizon and strong shadows in the foreground. To enhance the look of the middle tones, first I'm going to apply the clarity style, which will keep the highlights and shadows intact but boost up the middle tones. Next, let's just concentrate on black and white tones by choosing the yellow filter, which will darken up the blues in the sky. So now we have a grayscale or black and white image, and we'll pull up the ZoneMapper tool. ZoneMapper is the equivalent of adjusting with curves or adjusting with levels, but it's much more refined in terms of its ability and providing a way for visual feedback. And here's how it works. We roll our cursor over the various tones in the ZoneMapper. We go from the darkest tones to the lightest, and in a sense we X-ray or view what the contents of our picture contain as we start. As we roll over the different zones, we can see how they're being mapped in the preview above. And you can see with this photo that the range of tones goes from almost white down to very black, but not quite black. You can see now that we have two zones that are not represented in the image. 2 out of 16. Our first tone actually shows up here, and in order to increase the contrast in the image, we can actually bring this down. Now as for the highlights, let's say we want to keep this highlight tone as a target exactly where it is now. We just click on that divider and that locks that tone in place. Now with those in place, let's see what happens to the rest of the tones in the picture if we grab one of the middle tones. If I move up, all the tones brighten. If I move down, all the tones darken. That is, all the tones except the tones we have locked in place move along with my cursor. So that might be fine, but we may want to experiment a little bit. So let's dig a little deeper. We have some tones here. This tonality shows up in this area and also these clouds. So we may or may not want to adjust those. Now let's lock a few levels above and below this and see what happens with the tone when we adjust it. What I am showing you here is that we have areas of the photograph we can adjust without affecting the rest of the picture or the entire picture. And that is pretty powerful. You can do that with other programs, but you have to have a lot more finesse, and it's not as easy as it is with the ZoneMapper tool. So for now, I'm going to eliminate some of these locks. And now I want to put some more richness in the highlights only. So I'll put a lock here in the midtones, and I'll grab some of these higher tones here and bring them down. And you'll see on the display that I've got more richness, more detail in the higher midtones. This is happening all throughout the sun-drenched hills that are beginning to go into shadow. So this allows me to interpret my picture in ways that I wouldn't normally easily be able to adjust. Now I may or may not want to keep my highlights locked. Let's see what happens if I release it. Well, that contributes to the mood. When I release that highlight, it gives me a better feel. So now I'm pretty happy with this picture. If there was anything else I was going to do to it, I think it would be to adjust the clouds up above. First, let's look at the before and after. I've got much more tonality in the photo now. If there was anything else I'd like to do to this, I might want to bring more detail out in the sky. How I would control just the top of the sky is by creating another ZoneMapper and using something called regions to localize the adjustment. First, I'll size down the window so that I can get my, quote, fingers, unquote, around the outside of the picture. This is pretty much a straight shot from left to right, although it's at an angle. So I'm going to use the straight line region tool. I can define this region with 4 points, starting here, moving across the picture to here in the top right. And then for the last point, I hit the escape. Grabbing the second line inside allows me to control the feather or the edge of the region. This eases in or softens the edge of the filter. Now I can hide the region by doing Command R on the Macintosh. And now I'll search for the tone that I'm looking for, which will be right where I left it before. So I have a choice to darken or lighten that region only, but I wanted to lighten it. And I'm going to lighten it just a little. Now we'll look at the toggle for before and after for this region only, and we'll see the difference. This brings out the contrast between the trees and the sky. And I might want to revisit and fine-tune the relationship of everything. I'm pretty happy with the result. So let's look at the before and after. So what we've done here is taken a shot that had some promise, but in order to be more expressive, it had to be interpreted. And we interpreted it through making it black and white, adding the clarity filter, which brings up the middle tones, and then topping that off with the ZoneMapper tool so we can grab the individual zones and adjust them until we have the expression we want. The outcome of that is that we've made something very exciting, and now we're going to save it. In this video, we showed principles of basic zone mapping, along with some more intermediate zone mapping steps. When we look at our before and after, we see how fast and easy it is to work with LightZone. You can try this technique for yourself in LightZone, or download the trial now. This image and most of our other sample images are located in the LZ Exercise Files folder. You can download individual lessons or the entire group of sample images.